Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Matt and I'm here with another Palantir video. And this video is going to be on the double-click demo. It's going to be my recap of their double-click demo and why I believe it's not a disappointing demo, contrary to some other opinions going around YouTube as to why the double-click was underwhelming. I want to go through why I believe it absolutely wasn't and the different key points that I'd like to share with you guys in case you didn't get a chance to go through it and watch it all for yourself. Now, before I jump into the video, if you're not trading with Webull and you'd like to and possibly get 2 free stocks with a deposit of $100, now keep in mind this does help me out as well and supports the channel as I also get 2 free stocks, then you can click on a link down below and that'll take you right over to Webull and get you set up with those 2 free stocks after that deposit. Lastly, as always, there are different chapters down at the bottom of this video along the timeline where you can click to fast forward to any particular part of this video that suits your interests or needs. Instead of just watching the entire video, I respect your time, so please, by all means, click through and go to the part that you'd like to listen to first. And with that, I'm going to jump right into the video. Now, a couple key items that I want to touch on before we get into the nitty-gritty details are the fact that this double-click demo is not necessarily 100% geared toward investors. This demo is geared toward potential clients and clarifying what their software does for clients that are possibly on the fence about using Palantir. Now, I want to make sure that this is understood because I feel like a lot of people that were waiting for double-click demo were waiting for some kind of crazy bombshell news that was going to send the stock skyrocketing. That's not the aim of this series. The aim is to bring more clients on board, demonstrate the capabilities of their software in a way that is very easy for clients and possibly investors and stock investors to fully understand what it is that they are investing in, but also for clients to really understand what they may potentially be signing up for with a contract with Palantir. Understanding that, this series for me did a lot to clarify some of the previous kind of vagueness or little discrepancies or nuances in my mind that I was thinking about when previously doing my video on Foundry, Gotham, and Apollo softwares that Palantir pushes to their clients. It definitely provided more clarity for me, specifically around Foundry, and also unveiled some new different items that I didn't realize were part of the service, such as how they run simulations and also provide something called Archetypes, which better suit their client needs. Now, if you aren't aware of how they run simulations to better serve client needs or what archetypes are, then you're going to really enjoy this video. Additionally, there were a couple different use cases that they showed in the demonstration for Foundry that I found super interesting, such as what you may be seeing on other YouTube videos regarding the carbon footprint tracking, which is just an example of an archetype that they have in the Foundry service. And so with that, let's jump into the nitty-gritty of it. So as we go through this video, what we're going to do is I'm going to basically give you either a little bit of an introduction or an explanation, either preceding or succeeding a different clip from the recap. I'm nitpicking little different parts of these videos that I feel show the different key components that I'd like to share with you guys. And so for this first clip, what I want to do is mention that at the very beginning of demo day, the COO had an explanation for the software in a way that I didn't really think about before, where he mentioned, obviously the software gets better and better and better over time. It is based on artificial intelligence, which naturally with more information gets better. Naturally with more industries taking to using the software, as it gains all that information, all the analytics, as it constantly gets used by more and more people, it gets better and better and better. And this is something that we understand, not just for this service, but for really any company that's using AI. This is something we hear over and over, that it is just an iterative process that constantly gets better. But something that I didn't hear before that kind of stuck with me was when the COO was explaining, every time this gets better, every time they roll out a new update to the softwares, this makes their clients more competitive, since they are obviously marketing themselves as a software that puts their clients at the forefront of their industry, that puts them in a better position to compete on a global scale. Every time they roll out an update, they become that much more competitive as a whole for their entire business. So that may be kind of like, well, duh, obviously they become more competitive. But you have to understand, coming from their perspective, they see Palantir as the service that is not just an add-on to somebody's business, but is the central operating system for that business. And so being such an integral part to a business, that to me was actually a little bit of a standout key component in the opening COO statement. So let's take a look at that real quick.
Upgrading Foundry, upgrading Gotham upgrades the customer's business. Upgrading Gotham upgrades your weapon system. Upgrading Foundry upgrades your company. It does this by connecting your company. It does this by delivering this crucial leverage to connect strategy and operations immediately. And I think this is just profoundly powerful. And it's a result of over 15 years of hard work and focus on alpha generation. We didn't just stop at beta. We're not just making you more efficient. We're actually making you more competitive. And with every update and every release of the software, we're making you more and more competitive.
So what does the COO mean when he says they push to generate a company more alpha? Now we get it. With more upgrades and as these rollouts come out to make the software that much better and it makes your company that much more competitive, they generate alpha. What does that mean? Alpha, in the COO's mind, is how the company doesn't just take analytics and present the analytics to you, but instead actually shows you the key decisions that can be made and helps push you in the right direction to make the right decisions. So this appears to be another level of service for this type of software where it doesn't just give you the data, but instead it really analyzes the different potential outcomes and helps you make the right one. And it doesn't necessarily look like there's many competitors in the market for this type of software. Now, I know that a key criticism is that there are other data analytics companies out there that have a much smaller market cap, that are on paper possibly worth more money than Palantir. However, I don't see any data analytics companies pushing their software as this type of service where it actually helps push you towards the right decision, where it can run simulations, where it has different archetypes for different kinds of scenarios that your company may come against. And we're obviously going to go into all these different things that I'm mentioning later in the video. But just as a key highlight, I just wanted to touch on this and how the COO sees this software actually differentiating itself from everything else out on the market. Now, if you already know what Foundry does, then feel free to skip to the next chapter in this video. This is going to be a very, very brief recap on what Foundry does. If you'd like a more in-depth guide, then by all means, click on my last video. Now, I do warn you that my audio on my last video is terrible, and also I was absolutely terrible at pronouncing Palantir. So I apologize for that in advance, but the information is pretty good. And if you like to find out a little bit more about Foundry, Gotham, or Apollo in depth, then click on that up at the top right of this video. But for now, we're just going to do a brief recap here at the 9-minute mark of the demo.
With software-defined data integration and our use case catalog, you can achieve what used to take months or years, now in a matter of hours. Let's start with a simple question. What is Foundry? Foundry is a first-class data integration and management platform, a comprehensive suite of analytical tools, and an operational platform of applications for business users. But at its core, we believe Foundry is the central decision support infrastructure for any organization. We've built a software framework that translates data and models into knowledge that human operators can use to make better decisions.
Okay, so we have a brief understanding of Foundry. It takes in an immense amount of data and it helps you make decisions. Most of us already know that. What is it that they go into in this double-click demo that really starts to expand upon maybe some new items that we don't know about Foundry yet? First, a little bit more in depth than we've had before in the past. Let's go into how Foundry is used on a particular industry as a generic use case. We're going to go take a look at this video from the 11-minute and 10-second mark.
Let's take a manufacturing plant as a first example. To create a 360-degree view of the plant, we are joining massive amounts of data, like sensor data from plant operations, or logistics data from distribution centers, or financial data from ERP systems to create the plant object. As we continue to integrate data to support more and more use cases, our ontology continues to grow. We also link the plant to key entities like distribution centers, customers, and raw materials, which are backed by even more data sources. The result of this data integration and mapping work is immediate transparency into the business objects, that plant, for business users across the organization. As a supply chain manager, a logistics officer, or a plant operations manager, I can see all the data that has been integrated to develop that plant object. And for any single plant, I can quickly see the most relevant KPIs to understand customers and distribution centers by city, as well as any demand alerts and the demand in production over time.
And now let's get a little bit more concise with it. I'm going to play a clip from the 14-minute and 10-second mark now.
Let's quickly jump into edit mode to show how the ontology makes this type of complex application easy to build and maintain with no code. So now let's say I want to quickly see a more detailed view of the customer. It's not hard to do. First, I can quickly add all the information I have about customers. From the map, I want to add a widget to the left to display properties for all customers. We can search for the customer object from the ontology and add all the properties. Next, I can add information in an additional widget below about linked distribution centers. Instead of a property, we're going to add an object list. And this requires all of that mapping between objects in the ontology we've already created. So in under a minute, I've added information to this view from dozens of data sources to enrich my decision-making ability. Importantly, these applications lead directly to real actions and form complex, multi-step, cross-functional business processes. For example, when a supply chain analyst identifies a demand gap, excess inventory, or other issues, they can immediately take corrective action, such as partially fulfilling an order or reallocating some of that stock. From there, a colleague in the distribution center can immediately see this new information and act on it. On the surface, this looks relatively simple, but under the hood, actions are a powerful building block. Every action represents a decision made by a user and is written back into the shared ontology. For example, a fulfill order action will subtract items from an inventory object, add those items to the order, and change the order status from open to filled. Actions can also have complex validations and security conditions, making them a powerful building block for multi-step business processes. This doesn't even require every user to be in Foundry. Actions taken in Foundry applications can write directly back to legacy systems, they can interact with business systems like email, or even talk to machine control systems, allowing applications to seamlessly integrate into existing operations.
So hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight into how Foundry actually works with a specific industry, in this case, an industry that has distribution centers, different warehouses that possibly have different machines that are producing some type of product, and how Foundry actually integrates into the specific language that those machines speak, how it can parse out data from that machine, how it can interact with different users and workers at these different facilities, and how it can help drive different actions from every single person that has access to Foundry through one of the particular sensors that is feeding data into the software. Now, something really cool that I didn't cover in my last video that I thought was actually very, very, very powerful was the ability for Foundry to run what is called models. So this is a simple concept. As soon as I tell you, you'll probably naturally make the connection that, well, okay, that makes sense. It's very natural for something that has this much data to run a simulation. But in our minds, even though that may be very simple, in practice, I believe this to be very, very complicated and very, very tough, as I specifically haven't seen with many of the companies that I am looking into as Palantir competitors that are really able to do this on the scale that Palantir can, where they can run different models and simulations based on these decisions that it may be telling you this will make your company more efficient, or this will drive cost down, or this will produce less overhead from your capital expenditures, or whatever it is. You can run many different models that actually push these different scenarios through your full business without actually making the decision yet to see which one has the most likely beneficial outcome for your business. And I'm not going to lie, this may seem underwhelming, but to me, when I saw this, my mind just went, that's crazy. You're taking a lot of the analytical side from an executive's position out of their position and putting it into a software that, as long as it executes on this well, this is incredibly powerful.
More than just data. Oftentimes, operators rely on models to help them understand the potential impacts of decisions before they make them. These models can be as complex as deep learning and artificial intelligence, or as simple as logic, like adherence to standards often used by executives. Once again, Foundry's ontology is the connective tissue. By mapping models to that ontology, we create a system-wide simulation engine that powers what-if analyses that were previously impossible. Users at every level of the organization, from strategic to operational, can understand the potential outcomes and side effects of a decision before they execute on that decision. What this creates is an extremely powerful infrastructure that enables organizations to treat their operations like code. Changes can be staged and tested before they are applied. For example, in our supply chain control tower, production and pricing models leverage data from raw materials and plant capacity. It puts out production volume and customer demand estimates based on price changes. This type of model is often used by a supply chain manager to decide how much of a given refined product to make from a bath of raw materials.
So again, you can basically implement hypothetical decisions, see the effect it will have on your company or industry before you make it. And you have to understand that a company that is on a global scale has so many different layers to the business that Foundry can actually run simulations on any layer of the business. That is nuts, in my opinion. Very, very powerful. It just absolutely blew my mind. Granted, the stock goes down every time there's good news, but hey, I believe in it. So something really cool at this section of the recap video is where they went into different customer wins and how the Foundry service is actually being used across so many different industries. There are some pretty cool examples here that I never really thought that this software could be used for, but it truly can help maximize efficiency and optimize a business anywhere, any business. Their TAM is more or less every business on the planet, which blows my mind. Now, granted, the software is too expensive for smaller businesses or even medium-sized businesses, but it's just, take a look at this section of the video.
Software solution for better decision making, enabling businesses to actually turn their data and models into transformative change. This is especially clear from the business and institutional outcomes Foundry has enabled across the world. We want to share a few of those with you today. Some of our partners are using software where software really hasn't played a role previously. For example, a law firm is leveraging the technology to provide sanction screening to their clients, removing the need for manual review. In financial services, customers are extending their offerings to be much more tailored to the client's reality to create customized solutions. A bank is building new cash management capabilities that integrate directly with their client ERP systems to solve a ubiquitous challenge for treasuries. Another bank is investing in using the software to build resilient trade financing solutions that are highly responsive to dynamic supply chains. One insurance company is providing a shared foundation for risk management with primary insurers. Another insurance company is deploying an elder care operating system across Japan to address a systemic societal issue of inefficient resource allocation. In manufacturing, companies are breaking down silos to make their value chains work much more efficiently together. Automotive OEMs are deploying the software to their suppliers to enable seamless quality investigations and supply chain coordination. Performance materials manufacturers are collaborating with semiconductor manufacturers. And our channel partners that you heard about in our last investor call are using the software to build their own go-to-market motions that allow them to scale their unique expertise through software. A management consulting firm is taking a working capital reduction offering to market for industrials in Germany. That allows them for the first time to unlock their unique business understanding through software in a scalable manner. Another management consulting firm is leveraging
So as you can see, it goes on and on and on, and they touch just about every field imaginable. So that, to me, like I was mentioning before this clip, their total addressable market is out of this world as far as I can tell. So something else really cool that I saw was the use of what's called archetypes in the Foundry service. Archetypes is more or less, kind of think of it as a template, so to speak. Now, I'm very, very oversimplifying this, so please keep that in mind. But think of it as a template where if your company is already using Foundry and all the data is integrated into Foundry and you're running all kinds of simulations, you're managing your business from Foundry, an archetype is more or less a template, so to speak, again, oversimplified, that you can apply to your business's data already within Foundry to see how this potentially can either benefit your company or how it can impact or whatever it is. So for example, in this case, we're going to look at how an archetype is used for carbon footprint reduction, which I thought was super cool. Now, you may be seeing this on other YouTube videos where they covered this, but this is just one example of a bazillion different ways that this software can be applied to maximize efficiency, optimize the business, blah, 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 blah. I've already said it a million times.
And one way of doing this is Foundry's use case catalog. And what I want to emphasize with this is that it's much deeper than just some nice looking application templates. For example, let's dig into an offering we're developing around carbon accounting and management. To reduce carbon footprint, one of the hardest problems is actually building a data foundation to understand it at the granular level. Companies have to integrate detailed data from across their global operations, raw materials, manufacturing, logistics, distribution, and transport, and overlay all of that data with a carbon equivalent calculation, and then incorporate that cost into workflows across the business. From there, they can start to actually evaluate the impact of everything from daily decisions, at what speed should this ship travel, to long-term ones, like what ships should I prioritize to replace with more fuel-efficient ones. Foundry Solutions solves this complexity, building the knowledge asset and simulation capability first, and enables customization of specific workflows and applications built on top of that.
Now, keep in mind, that is one archetype that Foundry has that can be applied to any business currently using Foundry. That's crazy. That blows my mind. If I'm a client watching this and I'm thinking of how can I reduce my carbon footprint in order to get some credits from the government or whatever it is, car manufacturers, whatever it is, a million different businesses that have a carbon footprint that probably, depending on what state they're operating in, get increased tax because of it. How do you reduce that? Foundry can solve that for you, as well as be the main operating software for your business. That is crazy. Another key moment in the DoubleClick demo series was how they are rolling out mobile support for any kind of field workers that may be, in an industry, in a warehouse, in a manufacturing plant that need to upload, let's say, a picture and some data that adds maybe some more clarity to a particular issue that's being tracked in Foundry. This is basically done on the fly now with their mobile support.
Servicing global infrastructure to military bases and more. Our upcoming mobile offering enables customers to build, deploy, and manage purpose-built applications for mobile using the same point-and-click tools that they use for desktop. For example, a maintenance technician can use their phone to guide and prioritize their daily work using a triaging application powered by multiple data sources and meaningful models. From there, they can identify and investigate maintenance issues on site and use the app to quickly capture back additional data on the fly that then becomes available to their colleagues.
And so with that, I bring the end of the Foundry coverage in the DoubleClick series. Now, I'm not particularly going into the specific use cases with life sciences and industrials. I'm more or less just looking at this overview video. So if you want to learn more about that, by all means, head over to palantir.com, where they have the different recaps of their industrials and life science specific use cases. Now we're going to jump over to the Gotham section.
Over the past decade, the US government has spent hundreds of billions of dollars on sensors, which create more data than ever before. Without a brain, though, better eyes alone cannot see. The sheer amount of data produced by these sensors has far eclipsed what a human being can process. We simply don't have enough eyes to analyze every observation, every frame. Gotham provides the brain for these sensors, fusing data and augmenting it in order to produce clear, actionable views of the world. And the Gotham brain isn't just focused on what our adversaries are doing. By connecting directly with organizational logistics and personnel data, Gotham provides an understanding of both sides of the battlefield, a digital chessboard that maps the entire battle space.
So in all actuality, I found that metaphor to be very, very, very powerful. It's not a way that I really thought of Gotham software previously, where Gotham is the brain for all of the million sensors that the government has. Now, to be frank, the Gotham section of the video was a little bit underwhelming, but I can see why. This part I would say was underwhelming because I didn't get any new information from the last video I made on Gotham. The coverage on Gotham seemed to just be a recap of what Gotham is. It was the shortest section of this series at only 8 minutes long in this video that I'm looking at, after we have just gotten through roughly a 40-minute section for Foundry. And I believe that's specifically because of two reasons. One, this doesn't really apply to clients that are looking for their services as something that they may need. Governments are using Palantir absolutely everywhere already. This is the strongest revenue stream for them right now. Where they are lacking, as many know, is in the corporate area, where they've only had 4% year over year increases from their revenue from 2019 to 2020. Whereas the government contract side has been, I believe, over 180% return year over year from 2019 to 2020. So it makes sense that they have a steady flow of revenue already. They have contracts that extend to several different years that use Gotham. They're focusing more on the corporate side from what I can tell, or at least that's what I'm inferring from the lack of Gotham coverage in this video. And so if none of this makes sense to you because you're coming to this video for the first time on my channel and you don't know anything about Gotham, then please click on that video that I last referenced earlier in the video, where I go into a deep dive on what Gotham does, as well as Foundry and Apollo, because the same also applies to the Apollo section of this video, where Apollo, they didn't really unload any kind of new information for Apollo, because Apollo is the support structure for Foundry and Gotham. It's what allows them to roll out updates. It's what allows them to constantly support the cloud infrastructure for Gotham and Foundry in a seamless way, where anybody who's using these softwares doesn't ever even have their service go down because of maintenance, because of upgrade rollouts or anything like that. Apollo is what supports it all and makes it all happen. So understanding that at a very high level, for the most part, is the only thing we really need to understand about Apollo right now. So if you want a deeper dive on that, again, please go see my last video on that. And with that, guys, that's all I have for this recap video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you found something worthwhile in this. There were a couple different items there in the Foundry portion of the video that I found really interesting, that I really enjoyed. And to me, just continues to make me all the more bullish on this stock. And so if you guys agree with me, let me know down in the comments. Leave a like, because it definitely helps the channel out. And if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. And until next time, guys, see ya.